So welcome everybody. For those of you who are new to us, I just like to start off by taking a few minutes to introduce Elena and I. Elena and I have been working together over the past year with Alma Me to really help PhDs make the transition to industry. We know this time can be really anxious, it can be full of uncertainty and fear and anxiety, and there's all kinds of information and things that you're being inundated with. And so one of the reasons we do this is to kind of pull back the curtain, give you an insider's perspective on what happens in industry hiring rooms and hiring decisions, and also kind of how to start to think about your career in industry so that you can really find your ideal position, because fulfillment is not just about the money, it's also finding things that are aligned and well suited to you as an individual. Um, so what we're going to be going over today really is about strategies for your job search, or sorry, strategies around your salary. And what most people don't always recognize is that when you think about your salary in industry, really getting yourself placed well starts well before you get a job offer. And it's really important for job seekers to start with an understanding of what they want and need their salary to be, because that will help you focus on careers in industries and sectors where that level of salary is actually a possibility. And then from there, understanding how you fit within those salary levels and how you position yourself for that. When you get to the negotiating stage, how do you negotiate for it? And then finally, once you're in the job, how do you continue to maximize your salary? So it's important to really understand how the salary works across the spectrum or the life cycle of kind of your career, and really think about it strategically. So a lot of people, when they go into discussions, or when they start thinking about their salary, it's only at certain times of year or it's during their job search itself. But actually maximizing your salary is an ongoing kind of effort. So it's really important to make it kind of part of the number of things that you consider in really kind of achieving your career goals. So to start off, I like to talk about, when you're thinking about your ideal career, it's important to really understand, first off, what are the careers and industries and types of companies that align with your interests, your passions, and your values. So before you even get into the money piece, it's really important to understand those things, because when you start to look at salaries, there's a lot of different kind of factors that count in towards how salaries get set. But for you as a person, it's really important to understand where your values sit, so you can narrow down the number of careers and industries that you're looking into. So as a starting point, always start there when you're thinking about your job search. Once you have an understanding of the types of roles, it's really important to do some due diligence around kind of what those different industries pay. And you're going to see a variety of factors that go into how companies set their pay scales. So it can be a matter of company size, it can be a matter of geography and where jobs are located. It can be a matter of skill set and kind of what skills and background and expertise that you bring to the table. So salaries are very multi-dimensional. So when you're thinking about your careers and careers that might be suitable to you, in addition to understanding those values things that I mentioned, you want to really understand what is the salary level that not only would help you meet all your basic needs, so your housing costs, your food, whatever extracurriculars, all of those things that to you equate to a fulfilling life. It's really important for you to understand what's your bottom line, what's the minimum that you can accept, right? Because that will start to help you set the bar for these are the types of jobs I can accept and I can apply for, and these are the types of jobs that I can't apply for or accept. And because there's a range, depending on things like company size, for example, if you want to go into data science and you say, okay, the minimum salary that I can accept is $100,000 a year, you can take a look at and say, okay, well, what size of companies actually have the level of revenue to be paying their data scientists $100,000 a year? So you can kind of start to narrow the playing field. The other things that you can consider when you're thinking about compensation is that compensation isn't always just about the salary. A lot of companies offer some type of bonus or commissions if you're going into sales. And so you want to think about your pay in terms of two segments. You want to think about it in terms of your base pay, which is just the amount you get regardless of what you're doing, and then your variable pay, which is your bonus pay. It's kind of like the performance-based pay. And that can vary how companies treat those two things as well. So in some companies that are more kind of risk taking or need to accelerate growth, oftentimes what you'll find is they offer higher bonus potential because if the company performs well, then they bonus their people out. It's an incentive for you to perform higher. So you want to look at kind of both of those forms of compensation to see how they play together. Now, the good news is that there's many ways that you can do your due diligence and your research to understand salary levels. A couple of places I recommend starting are sites like payscale.com, salary.com, or Glassdoor. And you can go and you can look at different job titles and you can see things like the median pay, both in terms of the base salary as well as the benefits and any variable pay, which when you combine all those things, it's called total compensation. So you can go on and you can enter different filters or criteria. So if you go on like a payscale.com or a salary.com, you can go in and you can type in where you're looking for the job. You can type in what your experience level is. You can type in size of company. So there's various kind of things that you can put in there as filter criteria. And what it will pop out is it'll pop out a bell curve for you. And the bell curve will tell you, okay, here is the range of salaries for this particular type of role. Now, companies will try and set competitive, typically, though, companies will try and set competitive pay bands, but the way that they're competitive can vary, so they can play and kind of leverage the bonus versus variable pay. And then there's also something known as equity, which is they award you shares or kind of ownership in the company. So that can be a part of your pay as well. But generally what you're looking for in those pay bands is you want to say, okay, between the 25th and the 75th percentile, that's what most people are going to make. And based on that, where do I fit given my skill set and my experience and where I'm at? So people who are new to a particular role or position, they're going to be at the lower end of that. People who have been in that position before and are maybe getting closer to a promotion are going to be on the higher end of that pay scale. So always start off your search by understanding what is it that you need to make in order to be fulfilled in your career and satisfied and willing to stay at a company. So that's the first part. The second tactic around this is related to the job offer itself. So, you go through the interview process, depending on how well you resonate with that hiring manager can affect where you get placed in the pay band. So if somebody really, really likes you and really wants you in there and they want you in there right away and they want you to say yes right away, they may offer you a slightly larger salary or a slightly larger package that they think will be attractive to you and get you to say yes. Now, it's important to recognize that all job offers are negotiable. You can always negotiate. There are different people who will tell you different things around the negotiation. Some people will say, hey, if they give you an offer and you're totally happy with it, feel free to go ahead and accept it. I've done that in my career where I'm like, this offer is so good, there's no reason for me to negotiate. If I'm doing that, I'm probably leaving a little bit of money on the table, to be honest with you, because there's almost an expectation that you will negotiate. But, for some people like myself, negotiation can be really, really stressful. And to me that, if I'm above and beyond where I expected to be, that few extra $1,000 or whatever they're putting in my packet, I might get out of a negotiation may not be worth the stress for me. However, on the other hand, if you're like, okay, this is a reasonable offer that they gave me, or it's worst case lowballed below what you want to look for, then you definitely want to think about negotiating. And when you think about negotiation, it's about problem solving. So think about it like a conversation. It doesn't have to be like it's portrayed in the media. It's a conversation. Um, when you're negotiating your job offer, it's important to remember that this is the point in time where you actually have the most leverage to increase that salary offer. Once you get into the company, you're subject to certain policies around pay increases that they have. So you might fall into certain standards of increases that they have. When you switch jobs, you can increase your salary anywhere between 10 to 20%. So employers tend to be more generous and more willing to talk about salary when you're in the job offer stage because they want to get you in there. They're highly motivated and you have leverage. So you want to make sure that you're doing that negotiation. Now, once you get into the job, so you've negotiated all of your things and you don't want to negotiate everything, just pick the things that are important to you. But once you have completed your negotiation, you get into the job, the salary discussion doesn't stop there. So you want to have a really good understanding of first off, how does the company think about compensation? So what's their compensation philosophy? Do they do annual pay increases? Do they do market-based increases, meaning, hey, we're going to do things based on inflation in the market? So a lot of times you'll see annual pay increases set to a percentage based on inflation. So there are some employers out there who will say, okay, inflation is 6%, so everybody's getting a 6% raise as a market adjustment this year. And then on top of that, you may have performance increases where you say, okay, based on my performance, how much of an additional percentage pay increase do I get? Or how much is my bonus that I get? And at what intervals do you increase salaries and at what intervals do you offer bonuses? So you want to understand those things going into the company. Because what that allows you to do is it allows you to think of your performance in terms of those intervals. So you can say, okay, if this company does pay increases once a year, then I need to understand what good looks like. So what would they consider to be high performance so that when they come up to those evaluation periods, I'm highly competitive for a pay increase. And what that generally means is companies have a pool. They have a pool of funding that they use for those annual pay increases. I'm not going to say all companies, I try not to speak in black and white because it varies from company to company. But in general, companies will set aside a certain amount of funding in their budgets each year to do pay increases. But it's a pool, it's a finite resource. And so they're going to divvy that up based on the people who are most important to their business to retain, meaning keep them with the company, based on who are their highest performers that are contributing, and who do they want to incent for whatever particular reason. So there's some other reasons that might fall in there. So for example, if you've got a person who who has done a good job or has been at the company for a really long time. So, you might give them some type of additional retention or something like that. So you want to be kind of in a good position at those performance review periods that your manager can make a good, solid business case and rationale around why you should get a higher level of increase, why you should get a bigger share of that pool, right? So that hinges on really having a good understanding of what are your objectives and how can you perform not only just to those objectives, but how can you perform above and beyond those objectives. How that could look could be something like this. You have a performance goal of, let's just say you're in data science, helping to launch 3 new products, developing algorithms for 3 new products over the course of the year, right? So one way that you can exceed that is to say, not only did you develop those algorithms, but you produced all of the sales readiness materials so that you could train the sales team on what is happening within those products so that they can be more effective, right? That's an example of going slightly outside of your role. You're still using your knowledge, you're still using your experience, but you're not boxing yourself into the job description. Now, where people tend to get kind of lesser values on the performance reviews is when they really box themselves into their role and say, you know what, I'm not doing anything outside of the boundaries of this role. And what that can do is that can actually be limiting, not only in terms of promotions, but in terms of salary increases. Some people are perfectly okay with that. It's not problematic, but if you want to kind of continue a steep upward climb on your salary, you do have to kind of go outside of those boxes because that's going to give you more of an opportunity. So one thing I actually recommend to people is when you're done with all your work, go around to your coworkers and say, what can I help you with? Huge opportunity to figure out where else you can contribute and provide value, which then you've got people talking about how you helped as well. So that can feed into those promotion opportunities. So those are my kind of 3 main strategies. First off, understand your value, do your research, do your homework, understand kind of the factors that drive your salary up and down. Number 2, determine what factors in your job offer you want to negotiate using those kind of rationales that you discovered in your diligence to rationalize why you should get a higher amount. And then 3, making sure that you're not only meeting the expectations for your role, but exceeding the expectations for your role so that you can maximize your salary potential once you get into the job.